Danika stood behind the heavy velvet curtain, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the empty diploma folder. She could hear the crowd cheers, whispers, the echo of names being called before hers. Her heart was pounding, not from fear, but from something far more vulnerable, hope. Hope that just for one day her parents might be proud of her. Hope that for once in her life they might see her not as a burden, but as a daughter worth celebrating. She had worked for this moment. 4 long years of early shifts and late-night lectures, ramen dinners, secondhand textbooks, quiet tears, no vacations, no safety nets, no backup plans. And now, as her name echoed through the auditorium, Danika Morales, she took a deep breath and stepped into the spotlight, ready to finally be seen. What she didn't know was that this very moment, this shining, sacred second, would be ripped away in front of hundreds. Danika had barely made it 3 steps across the stage when she heard it. "You don't deserve this, girl. You just partied on my dime." Her father's voice, loud, slurred, and unmistakably angry, cut through the celebration like a knife. Heads turned, gasps followed. Some thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. Her father stood up from the front row, finger pointed at her like she was a criminal. And before security could react, he began climbing the steps to the stage. "You think you're better than us now?" he shouted, getting closer. Then, without warning, a slap. A loud, sharp crack as his palm struck her cheek. The microphone picked up the sound. Her cap fell. Her body jolted. And just like that, the cheers stopped. Silence swallowed the entire auditorium. Her mother, she laughed. She needed that. Maybe now she'll remember who fed her. Danika stood still, face burning, ears ringing. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She didn't collapse. She just stood there, frozen in disbelief, as the room watched the unthinkable unfold. Danika didn't move right away. Her cheek was still stinging. Her ears still rang. Her heart, it wasn't broken. It was waking up. She looked down at the microphone that had picked up the slap, and then she stepped toward it. Her hands didn't shake anymore. Her voice, clear, controlled, cutting through the silence like a blade. "You didn't give me everything," she said, her eyes locked on her parents. "You gave me trauma, and now you've given me freedom." Gasps echoed across the auditorium. No one moved. No one whispered. Even the professors on stage froze mid-breath. This wasn't just a response. It was a declaration. A line drawn in blood between what came before and everything that was about to come next. Danika didn't wait for applause. She walked off the stage, chin held high past the stunned faculty, past the cameras now recording every second. And with each step, the story stopped being theirs and started becoming hers. Danika disappeared. No phone calls, no social media, no explanations. She deactivated every account, blocked every number, and vanished from every digital map her parents could track. The only thing she didn't shut off was her voicemail. "You humiliated this family, Danika. After all we sacrificed for you. You think you're better than us now? Your sister would have been grateful." Some messages came angry, some came quiet, manipulative, almost tender, but never truly loving. "Come home, baby. Let's just talk. You're still our daughter if you apologize." Every notification that lit up her phone felt like a fresh wound. But Danika didn't answer, not because she didn't feel anything, but because she felt everything all at once. Shame, rage, betrayal. And underneath it all, a dangerous new emotion, clarity. She knew this wasn't just about the slap anymore. This was about a lifetime of silence, of being blamed, of never being enough. And now, finally, they were hearing her, because for the first time, she wasn't speaking. She was gone. The texts never mentioned her name, but Danika knew exactly who they were talking about. Your sister would have appreciated the sacrifices. She never disrespected us like this. Her sister, the golden child. The one who dropped out of college after one semester but still got her dream car fully paid for. The one who never worked a day but had a weekly spa membership paid by their mother. The one who took the family's money without guilt and still got called our perfect little girl. And Danika? The one who worked 2 jobs, pulled all-nighters, ate stale crackers for dinner. She was the ungrateful one, the invisible daughter, the emotional punching bag, the family disappointment. She remembered being 14, staying up all night to finish a school project, only to hear her mother say, "Your sister got a B in dance. That's real talent, not this nonsense you do." She remembered saving for months to buy her own laptop, then watching her sister get a new one handed to her just because she looked sad that week. Danika had spent years wondering what was wrong with her. Now, for the first time, she realized it was never her. It was the system. It was the favoritism. It was the lie that love had to be earned, and she'd never be enough to deserve it. Danika didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't beg for understanding. Because what's the point of screaming when they've already decided you're not worth hearing? No, Danika did something far more dangerous. She planned. In the quiet of her temporary bedroom, curtains drawn, phone on silent, mind racing, Danika began laying bricks in her mind. And it all started with one secret, one name. One man who had seen her worth long before anyone else ever had, her grandfather. When Danika was 16, she had spent nearly every weekend at his place. She cooked for him, helped him with his meds, listened to his stories, even the ones she'd heard 10 times before. Her parents barely visited. Maybe that's why, just months before his passing, he quietly named Danika as the secondary beneficiary of a long-term investment account. He didn't tell her with fanfare. He simply handed her a sealed envelope and said, "Just in case they ever forget who you really are." Danika never told anyone, not her friends, not even Hannah. She had held on to that secret like a survival seed, quiet, hidden, and untouched. Until now. Danika had always assumed her parents were doing fine. They dressed like money, talked like money, treated everyone else like they owned the world. But truth has a funny way of revealing itself, especially when you stop trying to be part of the lie. One quiet evening, while scrolling through public tax records, something she had learned to do while freelancing for a legal startup, Danika's heart stopped. There it was, property tax delinquent, 1 year, foreclosure, imminent, address, her childhood home. Her father too busy gambling, her mother too busy pampering her golden child. They had let the empire rot from the inside while still boasting like royalty. Danika didn't cry. She didn't warn them. She contacted a lawyer, set up a proxy buyer, filed the necessary paperwork quietly, legally, ruthlessly. And then, without a single phone call or text, she bought the house, their house, the very one they swore she'd never be good enough to inherit. She didn't feel victorious, not yet. But for the first time in her life, Danika held power. And she planned to use it not with rage, but with precision. They returned from their spa weekend smiling, matching luggage, designer sunglasses, and not a single clue what waited for them at home. Her father jingled his keys with confidence. Her mother pulled out her phone mid-call, already ranting about the resort towels. But the moment they reached the front door, everything changed. Click, click, click. Each key useless. The door silent. The lock unrecognizable. "What the hell?" her father muttered, trying harder. Her mother began to panic, checking the address, the mailbox, even the house number. Danika watched from across the street, inside her parked car. She waited until their confusion turned to frustration, and their frustration turned to fear. Then she stepped out, calm, steady, dressed in black, and in her hand, a manila envelope with a bold official title, Property Deed, New Owner, Danika Morales. They turned, faces twisted with disbelief. "You might want to stop doing that," she said, her voice cool. It's considered trespassing now. What are you talking about? This is our house, her mother screamed. Danika held up the envelope. No, this was your house. Now it's mine. Legally, publicly, permanently. Her father's face flushed red, his fists curled like before, but this time he couldn't touch her. Leave, Danika said, or I'll call the police on my own parents. And this time they'll believe me. Her father's face twisted into something animal, red, furious, unbelieving. You ungrateful little... After everything we gave you. His voice cracked the silence like a whip, the same voice that once made her flinch as a child, but not anymore. Danika didn't raise her voice. She didn't step back. She simply looked at him, her tone steady, sharp like glass. What exactly did you give me? She asked. Let's see. You gave me guilt. You gave me bruises, some physical, most emotional. You gave me silence when I begged for love, and noise when I needed peace. Her mother opened her mouth to interrupt, but Danika raised her hand not to hit, but to speak. You took from me first. You took my trust. You took my self-worth. You took my childhood. So no, this isn't revenge. I'm not taking anything from you. I'm only reclaiming what was already mine. The wind blew gently between them. For a second, no one moved. Just the paper in Danika's hand, fluttering softly, the deed to a past she no longer feared. Just when Danika thought they might finally walk away, her mother straightened up, arms crossed, lips curled in a sneer. Fine, she spat, but don't forget our pensions are tied to this house. Danika blinked. Her father stepped forward, backing the threat. You bought the house. Great. Now you owe us. This property is partially linked to our retirement account. So unless you want us on your couch for the next 20 years, you'd better start paying up. Danika said nothing at first. She just looked at them, so certain, so smug, so entitled. It wasn't about money anymore. It never had been. This was about control. They had lost the home, lost the keys, lost their image. But now they wanted to hold on to the last string they had left, financial dependency, by turning her success into their lifeline. What they didn't know was that Danika had already seen this coming, and she was already 2 steps ahead. Danika didn't flinch. She didn't look surprised. She didn't even blink. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a thin folder, the same one she had been waiting to use for this exact moment. You're right, she said calmly. The house is tied to the retirement account. Her parents exchanged smug glances. They thought they had her cornered. But what you forgot, she continued, flipping open the folder, is that Grandpa anticipated this exact kind of situation. Silence. Danika tapped a page with her finger. Clause 14b. In the event of family abuse, emotional, physical, or public defamation, the secondary beneficiary may assume full managerial control over all related assets, including, but not limited to, property, trust, income, and retirement disbursement. Her mother's smirk disappeared. Her father's jaw clenched. Danika leaned in, voice lower, deadly clear. I filed the paperwork 3 weeks ago, along with 3 separate video recordings of the incident on stage. It was enough for the court to transfer everything permanently. She stood tall, folder in hand. You lost the house, you lost the pension, and you lost the right to ever use my name as a weapon again. The courtroom was quiet, but not because no one was watching. It was quiet the way the air gets right before a storm breaks open. Danika sat at the plaintiff's table, her attorney to her left, her hands clasped steady. On the other side, her parents, nervous, rigid arms folded like defense shields. The judge cleared his throat. We'll now review submitted video evidence, Exhibit A. The screen lit up. There it was, Danika's graduation day. The crowded auditorium, the microphone, her name being called, and then the slap. Loud, clear, undeniable. Danika didn't flinch watching it, but her mother did. Her father looked away. The room was silent again, but this time not in confusion. This time it was collective disgust. When the footage ended, the judge leaned forward slowly. There is no ambiguity here. This is not just a matter of bad parenting, it's public assault. He turned to Danika. Under Clause 14b, and in accordance with the evidence presented, full managerial control over the retirement account is hereby transferred to Miss Danika Morales, effective immediately. Danika exhaled, not because she won the money, but because for once the system didn't silence her. They lost their pension, she whispered afterward, and I gained something better, justice. Some people burn down the past to move on. Danika chose to rebuild it, not out of nostalgia, not out of guilt, but because she believed that the most powerful revenge is restoration. She stepped through the front door alone this time. No screaming voices, no slamming cabinets. Just sunlight filtering through dusty blinds and the faint scent of memory. And she began. The living room, once filled with tension and passive-aggressive silence, became a therapy space. Warm chairs, soft lighting, shelves of journals, and boxes of tissues that no one had to apologize for using. Her old bedroom, where she once cried into a pillow night after night, was transformed into a legal aid office, equipped with a desk, printer, and stacks of pamphlets titled Know Your Rights. The basement, once a dark place she hid in during her father's rages, was now lined with bookshelves, yoga mats, calming diffusers, and a kettle always ready for tea. It became a quiet sanctuary, a place for breath, books, and beginning again. Danika didn't repaint to forget. She redesigned to reclaim. This house would never again be a prison. It would be a place where broken people came to be made whole. A place where silence meant safety, where doors opened without yelling, where healing was not a privilege but a promise. She could have sold the house, she could have moved on, changed her number, changed her city, started fresh alone, far from anything that ever reminded her of the past. But Danika knew something deep in her bones. Healing isn't complete until you extend it to someone else. So she stayed, and she created something no one, especially her parents, ever expected her to build. Second Start Home. A place for young adults just like her. Those who had been kicked out, erased, or emotionally exiled by the people who should have protected them. Graduates with nowhere to go. Survivors of abuse told they were too old for foster care and too broken for normal life. Dreamers who had climbed their own mountain only to find no one waiting at the top. Danika opened the door for them. No judgment, no contracts. Just warmth, food, internet access, mental health care, and a simple rule: you don't have to prove you're worthy to be safe. Second Start Home wasn't a shelter. It was a beginning for anyone brave enough to walk away from pain and toward possibility. Danika never expected to be anyone's role model. She didn't set out to become a leader or a savior or anyone's safe space. She just wanted to build the thing she had always needed. And then, one night, it happened. A girl named Leela, barely 20, stood in the doorway of the Second Start Home, clutching a worn-out backpack and a trembling voice. She had just escaped a home where success was a competition and affection was a weapon. Danika sat with her in the living room, no clipboard, no questions, just presence. And Leela whispered through tears, "You're the first sister I've ever had who actually listens." Danika didn't speak for a moment. She didn't need to. Because in that moment, something shifted, not just in the room, but inside her. For years, she had ached for an apology that would never come. But now, she didn't need their apology. She had her impact. She had her peace. Danika had thought justice was the courtroom, but healing was this. A young woman calling her sister, without blood, without condition, and meaning it. It was late past midnight. The lights in Second Start Home were dimmed. The halls were quiet. A small group therapy session had just ended. Danika stepped outside to lock the front gate when she saw two familiar shadows standing at the edge of the sidewalk. Her parents. Her father looked smaller. The man who once shook walls with his voice now looked like he barely had the strength to stand. Her mother's hair was undone, her coat too thin for the cold. Danika didn't speak, not yet. Her mother stepped forward, arms crossed tight against the wind. We don't have anywhere to go," she whispered. "Just for one night, Danika, please." Her father avoided eye contact, staring at the ground like a child caught stealing. For a moment, Danika just stood there, unsure if what she was seeing was real, unsure if she should feel pity, or anger, or nothing at all. Because for years, they taught her that home was conditional, that love had to be earned, and now they were the ones outside, asking to be let in. Danika stood frozen at the gate, heart steady but heavy. This was the moment her younger self used to dream about, the moment they'd finally come back, weak, sorry, needing her. She used to imagine hugging them, begging them to stay, hoping for the words, "We were wrong, you deserved better." But that little girl no longer lived here. A woman stood in her place now, and that woman understood something that took years to learn. Kindness is not weakness. But kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. She took a step forward, not to embrace, but to draw the line. "This place," she said quietly, "is for people who've been hurt, and I won't let that hurt walk back through the door in any form ever again." Her mother's lips parted. Her father looked up. For a split second, Danika saw the confusion on their faces, as if they were meeting her for the first time. She didn't owe them hate, but she didn't owe them healing either. Danika turned around. No drama, no fanfare, just the sound of her footsteps as the door clicked shut behind her. The next day, Danika stood behind a curtain again, but this time there were no trembling hands, no racing heartbeat, no fear of who might be in the audience. This time, the air felt calm, the lights felt warm. And when her name was called, Danika Morales, founder of Second Start Home and recipient of the Community Renewal Award, she stepped forward not as a daughter trying to prove her worth, but as a woman who had already claimed it. There was no slap, no scream, no shame, only applause, genuine, proud, lasting. The mayor handed her the plaque with a smile. The crowd stood. And somewhere in the front row, she saw Lila, eyes shining, clapping with both hands like she was cheering for a sister. Danika smiled. This time, she didn't have to force it. Because this stage, it was hers. Not given, not stolen, earned. In the front row, Hannah couldn't hold back her tears. She wasn't crying out of sadness. She was crying for every night Danika had gone to sleep questioning her worth, every time she had been slapped down, belittled, abandoned. And now Danika stood tall under the spotlight, not broken, but radiant. The applause that filled the auditorium wasn't just loud, it was healing. It echoed for every girl who'd ever been silenced, for every child whose success was called luck instead of effort. And in the middle of that storm of clapping, Danika smiled, a real smile, without fear, without pretending. This time, no one could slap it off her face. No hand, no shame, no past. Because this time, Danika didn't just survive, she triumphed. Sometimes the people who were supposed to protect you will be the ones who hurt you most. But your pain doesn't have to be your prison. It can be your blueprint for freedom. You don't need their approval to be whole. You don't need their love to be strong. What you need, what Danika proved, is your own courage to rewrite the ending. Because healing isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your story and finally becoming the author. And remember, the greatest graduation in life isn't a diploma. It's when you walk away from the pain without looking back. If this story moved you, If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or underestimated, subscribe to Whispers of Life, where we turn silent pain into powerful stories. Because your voice matters, and your healing begins here.